Good evening and welcome to The Strand. I'm Christina Foxley, the Director of Events, and I'm so pleased to welcome Richard Misrach back to The Strand. The contemporary master is here tonight to discuss his latest monograph, Destroy This Memory, featuring previously unpublished photographs created 1 month after Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans. Rather than simply surveying the damage, Misrach, who has photographed the region regularly since the 1970s, most notably for his ongoing Cancer Alley project, found himself drawn to the hurricane-inspired graffiti. Messages scrawled in spray paint, crayons, chalk, or whatever materials happened to be on hand. Artists' royalties for this project are being donated to the Make It Right Foundation, which is currently rebuilding the lower 9th Ward of New Orleans. Misrach is credited with helping pioneer the renaissance of color photography and large-scale presentation in the 1970s. He has exhibited extensively, and his work is held in the permanent collections of prestigious institutions such as the Museum of Modern Art, Whitney Museum of American Art, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art, D.C.'s National Gallery of Art, Houston's Museum of Fine Arts, and the Art Institute of Chicago. He is a recipient of numerous awards, including the Guggenheim Fellowship and 4 fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts. Following tonight's presentation, Richard would be happy to take your questions. I'll walk around with a microphone, so please wait for that before you speak. And then he'll sign copies of his books for you, which you can purchase downstairs on your way out of the store. Please join me in welcoming Richard Misrach to the Strand.
Hi everyone, this is a little tricky because we have a reach issue. All right, great. And then Christina, wherever you are, if you could hit the rest of the lights, thank you, that'd be great. Thanks for coming. Tonight we're going to talk about Destroy This Memory, but before I get into the new book, what I'd like to do is briefly talk about some earlier work that's connected to the new project. And probably the best place to start would be in the late 1970s. I photographed in Louisiana for the first time. So I just have a few simple slides, sample slides, just to get us into the new work. So these are photographs done in the 70s in the Louisiana swamps. These were all photographs done at night with a strobe and just sort of barbecuing vegetation at night in Louisiana. I want to point this out because it was a place that I came back to many times over the years as a subject, a place that was really important to me. The next body of work I wanted to sample is our photographs from the Salton Sea flood in California. It's a series I did in the 1980s, 1983 to 85, and it's an area that was a man-made flood. One of the points of showing this work this evening is that much of my work has to do with the collision between nature and civilization, and from one form or another, I've approached that with different strategies over the years, and the Salton Sea Flood series is just a really good example of that. And by the way, the Salton Sea Flood was actually a man-made flood, and that's really important, as you'll see in a number of these sort of tragic situations. Another series along those lines was a series of floods that I did in the 1980s, between 83 and 85 also. These were also fires that were started by man. They were either control burns or control burns out of control or arson. They weren't lightning strikes or anything like that. So for about a 2-year period, I photographed over 200 fires that were man-made. It looks like the focus is going out on that one. Yeah, I think you get the idea. This was a series of photographs of man-made dead animal pits in the Nevada desert. These were found near a naval air station. Long story, but again, it's this sort of a post-apocalyptic scenario. Also in the 80s, I photographed a military bombing range in the Nevada desert that the Navy had been bombing illegally. One of the things that I want this work to foil for you as we get into the Destroy This Memory is these were all shot with an 8x10 camera, and so the quality is quite important to the work. The Destroy This Memory is shot with a small megapixel camera. This was a personnel carrier painted to simulate a school bus. The landscape had been, it's actually a Northern Paiute ritual site, and the land had been bombed for 40 years illegally by the Navy, and there was thousands of unexploded bombs and actually nuclear waste and different kinds of contamination. Finally, the last series I'm going to show before the new work is these are photographs made in Louisiana, returning in 1990s. I did a series called Cancer Alley, which is the photographs of the Mississippi River industrial corridor between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And it's a petrochemical corridor that's very toxic. This is Swamp and Pipeline. This is a Dow chemical waste site. This is actually the west bank of the Mississippi River that's been trashed. So that's all just a brief lead-in if for those of you not familiar with my work. In 2005, I went to New Orleans after Katrina devastated the area, and I photographed for October, November, December. I went back on 3 different trips, and the plan was to go on for a year and a half, but I ruined my back, and so I had to stop in the middle of the project. But over the 3-month period, I made about 1,000 8x10 negatives, which are along the lines of the previous work that I just showed. But I also made about 2,000 photographs with a small 4-megapixel digital camera. And that camera was just a means of note-taking. I had no intention of ever showing that work or using that work for anything, but it was just a way of denoting where there was down street signs or a place I might want to go back to and photograph more seriously with the 8x10. When I got home, I put that work away. I felt that there had been so much work done on Katrina, a lot of great work by people like Paula Dore or documentary films by Spike Lee, tons of media attention. It seemed redundant to put any work out at the time. So I just put it away. And like another body of work, I did a series on the Oakland fire in 1991, which I'll be actually publishing and exhibiting for the first time next year on the 20-year anniversary. I decided to put this work away too. And originally I was going to put it away for 20 years. The idea was that, probably the biggest influence was Civil War photographs, which to this day remain some of the most moving photographs for me. Those photographs, probably at the time they were made, were more like journalism, were more event-driven, but now over time they've changed their meaning and they've become incredibly valuable, both beautiful but also a poignant narrative of history. And I felt that the work that I did was important, but that should maybe be put away and not part of the sort of take advantage of all the hoopla that was going on at the time. Then earlier this year, and I've been looking at the work on and off for the last few years, and I found that a lot of the small camera pictures that I took, which are very, pretty much iPhone quality, were quite compelling. There was an artlessness about them, a rawness about them that I felt was really poignant and right for the project. I also, as I mentioned, there's 2,000 photographs made with a small camera, and I had been looking at about 1,000, which is someday I will publish, but there was a small subgroup of photographs of graffiti that people wrote on their homes, their cars, on trees, with spray paint or chalk or whatever people could find. And those became a compelling narrative sub-series in their own right. So about 6 months ago, which is very quickly, one night I just woke up in the middle of the night and I just had this idea that the project, the first installment, the first salvo of this work, because I see it as a 3-part series, the first series should be these graffiti-laden pictures, and that's what I'm going to show you now. The book has 60 photographs, or 70 photographs, and they all have just graffiti in them. There's none without graffiti. In the book, there's no essay, there's no title page, there's no page numbers, no titles, nothing. It's all, the book is really the people's from Katrina, the survivors and the rescue workers of New Orleans and the Mississippi Gulf Coast. It's their words, it's their story. As I was looking at this work and editing it for the first time, basically I woke up in the middle of the night with this idea that it should be just words. And I went to my studio and I went through the 2,000 photographs and picked out about 200 photographs that just had people's spray-painted messages. I laid them out, and within 2 days, and I printed all 200, laid them out. They fell in an edit, and within 3 days I knew what the book was going to be and the exhibition and all that. And it starts out with a sort of a natural forming narrative of people sort of expressing their fear of the storm. Then it shifts to the survivalist defensive posture. Some of these may be hard to read from back there, so I'll read them. This one, it says, "I will shoot to kill," and it says, sign on its side. One of the things I was struck by is, two things I was struck by. One was the poetic nature of these very economic uses of language, the tightness of the text, they're like small haikus or haikus. And the other thing I noticed was there was a painterly component. Again, the people that were writing these things were being efficient and communicating, but they were using spray paint, and you could see almost in a painterly way each personality, each person's expressiveness within the spray paint. Not self-consciously doing it, but just doing it.